programs, so they're out of the unemployment figures. I mean, that's how it works in Austria.
Yeah, I can talk a bit about this. It's quite interesting actually. So yeah, this is one reason, and then I guess also youth unemployment would be higher than this, especially. I mean, traditionally the thing is, Sweden. There are some things that makes unemployment figures a bit strange in Sweden. One thing is that we had a very generous system for student loans. You don't pay a fee for going to school. Well, you pay what is it, 20 euros a semester or something like this. And you are able to get for 6 years a student loan, which I think you get about 700 euros every month. If it was a while ago I was studying, so it's probably gone up a little bit, but it usually goes up less than the prices goes up. So, but you have that, and then let's say about 2,000 or 3,000 is a direct subsidized, and the other 4,000 is added to your student loan that you then have to pay back. And this has functioned also as a way of mitigating unemployment, because if you finish high school and there is no job, anything to do, what do? You go to school. You take an easy course at university and you get this student loan. And you think, oh, maybe next year I can get a work, and then I work. So you can postpone your unemployment for 6 years.
That's real lifelong learning then.
Certainly I did that, I can tell you, because I mean, I have a background in sociology, which is not really, there's not a huge labor market screaming for more sociologists. I was lucky, I'm now doing a PhD in it, but a lot of people, you know, you finish after 6 years with a degree in literature studies or something.
You go into computers.
Yes.
Exactly. Do you have to pay the loans eventually?
Yes. Yeah, it's a bit adjusted to how much you earn, but now it's been more tough. It used to be that if you hadn't paid it back when you retired, they wrote it off. But now you have to pay it back.
So how much would it? I'm just because I had this impression that almost all EU countries provide free university education.
Yeah, I mean the education is free. This is for living costs.
Living costs.
Buying books and all that.
Okay.
So that's why people actually. I mean, it's like living on credit, just that it's not from a bank. It's from this student's body.
Low rates, probably low interest rates.
Yes, although they reformed it recently, so now it's a bit higher. So this is one reason why people are actually unemployed while studying. The other reason is that, exactly like you say, there is all these programs for unemployed. So some are put in some kind of education, some are put in what's called job coaching, which is, to me, a very problematic thing. That it's basically seen that the reason you're unemployed is because something with your psychology is wrong. Like you are lazy, or you are not unemployable. You don't know what job you don't want to take the jobs that are offered to you. So there is this whole industry of job coaching, which is really, to me, it's some kind of new age mumbo jumbo psychology thing. You get put with a coach that tries to excite you and come on, let's go and find those jobs. You can do it. You are a great person. Like Scientology and stuff.
Okay, well, it's very neoliberal. I mean,
yes.
it's it's putting this responsibility from the state or from companies onto the individual.
Yeah.
So basically, if you don't have a job, the problem lies with you.
Yes. And this is also then also try to get you to accept, you know, well, maybe there's a job in this other country, other
sector,
city on the other side of the country. You can move there. Or, well, we know you have a university education, but you cannot expect to get a job within your field. You have to start from zero. You are nobody now. Come on, you can become anything. And then there is also this very strange thing called phase 3, which sounds very dystopian science fiction. Like, but it's actually, if you have been unemployed a long time, you're put into a work training program called Phase 3, where you, in order to continue to receive your unemployment welfare, you need to get stationed at a company to practice working. Otherwise, it's assumed that you have been employed for so long that you are now unable to take responsibility and work and so on. So you get put in a company. The company gets paid to have you there. So the state pays you to be at a private company and do work. But there's a catch. This cannot replace real work, because then, of course, the company should just hire an unemployed person. But it can neither be a meaningless task, as in digging up a hole, filling in the hole again, digging up the hole, filling it. So somewhere between meaningless and a real job should be a task that you are stationed in this private company to do, which is almost philosophically it's a very tricky question. What is not a real job but neither meaningless? That's something to think about.
And how many people would be on that scheme?
It's actually the biggest employer. If you count it as an employer, it's the biggest employer. So around I think 40,000.
But then private companies then benefit from that because they get cheap
paid.
labor actually for somebody who's probably
not cheap labor. They get paid to.
They get paid to hire you.
So there is actually some companies who, I mean, of course, this was not the idea of the. The idea was that the person would go there and get some.
Eventually, they will hire them because.
Yeah.
That. Oh.
But there are some companies who only have this kind of people, so they get just paid, and then they of course make a profit.
That's a good business.
That these people are doing real jobs. If a company only has this type of workers, it's very obvious.
Yeah.
And the state doesn't have inspectors that do something about it.
It serves the numbers. In the end, it's political will. I would think. I mean,
there has been some criticism of it, and for example, the Social Democrats are critical of it and so on. But for the government, it's very good because it gets the unemployment numbers down, it gets business going, the economy going, and for them, I mean. To me, a problem with the current government is not just that it's kind of neoliberal and so on, it's also almost suicidal. In the sense that I would think that, okay, this is a little bit my personal opinion, but I would think they wouldn't even care if this is just state money going to companies, because for them this is almost good. And there's been also some scandals that when they privatize healthcare, for example, they don't even care trying to make a good deal of it. So recently in Stockholm, there was a hospital that was sold for 70,000 euros, which is less than you can get an apartment for.
Yeah.
To venture capitalists who sold it for 2 million euros, then 2 years later. So this is basically, I mean, if they're going to privatize, at least they should.
Smart make
should.
And why don't they?
No.
No, it's easier for not having for example, all the employees always on the budget in time, so in the future. So we aren't spending that much on healthcare anymore, so we don't have to spend, so we can spend the money on other ways. For example, it's just a figure.
You want to get rid of them.
Yeah, also I think it's because I mean, I sometimes think that if they at least would think only purely economically, but they think ideologically, in the sense that for them public welfare is bad and private company is good, so they don't even care how it's being done, as long as it...
Isn't it just to make their venture capitalist friends happy?
Yes,
that's it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm surprised
Aim, no?
that it's
You make a quick deal.
Yeah, it did.
This is
And get the money for the next campaign.
Because, for example, the current Prime Minister, his first political act was in the early 90s. He was head of the youth organization of this party, Moderaterna. He wrote a book called The Sleeping People, and it was a sci-fi story, where in the future, if a future Sweden, a future social democratic Sweden, has so much welfare that people are completely become passive, no ability to take responsibility and so on, that they die. They die the welfare death. You just die off eventually. So while this, okay, he was younger at least, and this is probably not his opinion now, but it seems that there is this ideological underpinning of social democracy has completely ruined Sweden and the Swedish culture, and now we need to turn everyone into an entrepreneur, basically. It's almost a psychological transformation they want as much as a social or economic or political.
If you start a business, you can get labor for free. So.
Yeah.
Magnus,
Yes.
what about the, did you finish?
Yes, yeah, please.
About Copy Me
Yes,
and internet issues, how is it going on this movement?
especially the Copy Me thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I can explain this. Copy Me was basically a concept that this Piratbyrån group started, that I was part of too, which has to do. It was basically around the time, of course, you had copyright, and then you also had other alternatives to copyright being discussed, such as Creative Commons and so on, which is more or less using copyright, but instead of saying, or using copyright but more permissive. So you use your copyright to say it's okay to share this, it's okay to do this, instead of just saying you cannot copy anything. We were a little bit critical against this, because this still assumed, first of all, like intellectual property ownership, and it's still thought in terms of limiting copying and spreading, although it was just a bit more permissive than copyright. And while this is like a good pragmatic solution in many cases and so on, we created this company called this concept called Copy Me, which was basically saying, instead of trying to set the terms and conditions of how people can share something I have done, I'm going to in fact encourage people to do it. So Copy Me, of course, means copy me.
You don't have copy left.
Copy left is in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it was even something like copyleft or something. It's a negative freedom. You say there is no restrictions. Well, this is a positive freedom in the sense you actively
And so
You
yeah.
see, like
encourage
selling
people
it
to do
for
it.
free,
Yeah.
like
And also the idea was that how you protect things by spreading them, more or less. Like
Mhm.
ideas, for example, is not protected by being locked in or something. They're protected by being spread. So this was it's a bit of an artistic thing. Then it was also this is quite funny actually. Some people associated with the Pirate Party, and one of them actually studying to be a priest.
So, can you repeat that? Some
Yeah,
people
there were some people from the Pirate Party.
from the
Pirates.
Pirate Party. One of them is actually studying to be a priest. They tried to register this Copy Me as an officially recognized religion in Sweden. And if you're officially recognized religion, of course you get these rights of your religious practice is protected, and there's all these rights associated with religious practice. And somehow they managed to do this.
really.
Which you send in a form that you can download from a website where you specify what your religion is. It's a bit of its history, a bit of its practices, a bit of the structure of who is a priest, who can wed people, and so on. You send it in to this this state department that deals with this. And I guess someone there just has to sign it and say yes. So they managed somehow to get I'm thinking that it's like a person who was going to retire the day after, and like this is the last funny thing he signed this into law. One thing is that this was just a sort of a practical joke of making it recognized. Another thing is that in the description of the religion, it says that every member is also a priest with a full right to wed people and so on. So you can get married in it. And this is not uncommon. I mean, I think the Mormons also have this, that everyone has priest abilities. So. The thing is also that the communication with a priest is protected by law in Sweden, just like the communication with your lawyer or a journalist or something. So they have a what you call it, like a right to silence. Confidential, yeah. They have the police cannot monitor it or something. You cannot wiretap the communication to the priest or so on. Which means that, any communication, also digital, between these people compromised are legally not allowed to be monitored. So if there's been a case in file sharing and the people were actually two people who in the Coppermint Church, it must be.
It cannot be touched. No,
I don't know if this would work. It would be fun to have it tried in a court. But we'll see. So this, I don't know how it's doing in terms of membership and so on. There was actually some people in Belgrade last year who had a marriage in this conference called Share Conference. They had a marriage. I don't know if anyone in Sweden has been married in this.
Do I get this right? So that will you marry me? And our information between the priest and the parties involved, then the information is confidential. That they're not subject to
between priest and the constituent of the church. Just you can go to in a Catholic church. You can go and confess.
Oh, so I can say, okay, I'm not atheist anymore.
I'm a copy me.
I'm a copy me member, and I would be protected under confidentiality.
Yes.
I would be protected from file sharing laws.
If you
any kind of
idea
of spying or whatever.
Okay, that's
Of course, in other ways you could.
Okay,
Get caught by
you might become the biggest religion in Sweden.
Yeah.
Yeah, but only if I'm saying, okay, I'm copy me.
Yeah, I know.
You have to be actually a member of the church.
Yeah, but only with the member of the other church.
Exactly. You have to be in the institute.
So you're a member of copy me.
I don't think I am actually. I don't know how to become a member, but I'm sure it's very easy.
Okay. I would like to make a comment. I think you made a comment. How various and diverse social issues are actually tied together to form this big picture. I think it's a central question too for me, also within this project, because we're very various, actually different organizations, and we're all talking about digital democracy and democracy, but we all have, I think, different approaches. Perhaps that's just a question that we can further talk about. I don't know if that's a possible issue. And I think it's tied to some of the questions that we have tomorrow. What we would like to discuss.
Yeah. Just like I said, I think this is something that was not really done by these three organizations I mentioned. I mean, Piratbyrån, I think one of our efforts was to do this a little bit. The Pirate Party, for example, has tried to expand to other issues, but not really succeeding. And I think one reason is that if we talk about what net politics is, that's the word we use here, net politics. It's not only politics about issues relating to internet, because there's a lot of this. I mean, there's laws being made about regulating the telecom industry or something. That's not really net politics. It's also not only using digital tools to do politics, because everyone is doing that now. It's not a single political actor who is not on Twitter in Sweden, for example. And people are, yeah, of course, organizing demonstrations with Facebook events, or there's a lot of the political discussion happen on Twitter, for example. And I think this is not really interesting in politics, but what often happens is the newspapers write about something that is controversial or something. There is a storm on Twitter about this, this is a scandal, blah blah. And then the newspaper write again about that people on Twitter have talked about it. And then a new issue comes up and it's the same thing again. So I think the net, when we hear say net politics in Sweden, we usually mean something that has just basically something that has its origin in this kind of a bit earlier experience of being on the internet, when the internet was like this kind of separate sphere in society, where it had its own little subculture, its own issues, and the whole hacker tradition and all these kind of issues. That I think this can also be a reason why there has not really been this growth of a new generation, because everything is internet now. So you can't really say to say net politics means less and less now than it did maybe 10 years ago, because it's just been so common. I think even the political parties and so on use Facebook and Twitter. So, our foreign minister Carl Bildt is this Twitter superstar that has crazy amounts of followers. So I don't know if he does net politics or.
So you're saying that it's actually become mainstream. So
yeah.
So it's not anymore like.
Yeah. Although I think also some things maybe are lost. And this is also one of the reasons why I think this movement in the suburbs are so interesting, because it's based on people who live in the same area, who probably grew up together often and so on. And then they connect with other people who also live in the same areas and so on. And this gives a more complete picture. Everything that goes on in this area, whether it's about housing or schools or criminality or whatever it is, all of this gets a more complete picture and being tied together, compared to these things that just blossom up on Twitter because the newspaper wrote about something, and then the next day it's something else. So also this, those are, I think, very important. Maybe the next presentation from Spain here will also show some other ways of doing this. Yeah.
Lunch break.
According to
how do you sorry, how
on
do
the
you
side, this side is the button.
This one?
The back. No, back.
Back?
More to the back.
Oh.
There. Yeah.
I push?
And then you should see that.